Hey guys, welcome back to Witch Talk. My name is Audrey and I am your witch in the Witch Talk Tower. And today we're going over something very, very important and personal, especially when it comes to mental illness. This is part of my mental illness series, and how I thought about doing this was actually very interesting. But first, a couple of updates. I know I have not posted a podcast lately in the past couple months since August. I do apologize for that, but recently, of course, if you've been keeping up with my Instagram page, my Facebook page, then you realize that I have moved and we've gotten relocated to a station, and it's been interesting adjusting. It's been a lot of fun, but also kind of had to restart a new schedule since me and my husband are not together full time, and getting this new chapter of my life started. So thank you guys so much for being so understanding. But how I came up with this series was because it's so important. And it is very much, there's a lot of misconceptions about mental illness. You know, back in the day, they didn't believe in mental illness. They thought that it was just like an unholy demon and things along those lines. That it was just like you being ornery and things along those lines. And now in the age of not just focusing on physical fitness, but also mental and emotional fitness too, and how it all ties together. Especially when you're a witch, especially when you're a spiritual person and you go through this. And what made me want to sit down on a Sunday morning and talk about this is because I have PTSD, which is complex post-traumatic stress disorder. And it's different. And I wanted to go over, and what happened yesterday is that I wound up getting triggered. And I will go in a little bit of how it happens and that kind of thing here in a second. But this is, and a lot of people have it's a lot more common than you think. A lot of people have misconceptions when it comes to it. A lot of people don't know exactly what to expect and things along those lines, and how to affect it and how to help people with trauma. So we're going to go over the symptoms of PTSD. And then in another episode, I'll compare PTSD and CPTSD. But right now, let's just start with the basics. And this is part of my mental illness series. PTSD can be short-term or long-term, and is triggered by a terrifying event or events. So sexual abuse, childhood trauma, abusive relationships, terrifying car act, a loved one dying. All these things can cause PTSD. Now, PTSD can be short-term. Also war causes PTSD. If a soldier comes back from war, a lot of soldiers come back and they do have PTSD. A lot of things happens in shifts when it comes to mentality. So any traumatizing event to the diagnosed. I'm going to say diagnosed versus other terms because this makes me feel the most comfortable, most respectful. For me, it was childhood abuse. And being a child, I had a lot of irresponsible adults looking out for me. And I just kept being exposed to abusive people that led to the traumatic events as a child. And learning to adapt from there. So some of the things that we're going to talk about when it comes to, there are some like blanket there are some blanket symptoms that go across the board. For example, like flashbacks, nightmares, severe anxiety, and walking through your trauma over and over and over again, uncontrollably, because it's something that you can't help. And we're going to go through each one of these into more detail. So flashbacks more talks about like intrusive memories. Like intrusive memories may be like recurrent or unwanting, distressing memories of the traumatic event. There's one in particular that plays through my head constantly. And my little sister was just born. My mom was working a night shift. And this is when her and my biological father were married. And my little sister started crying because she was only a couple months old and she needed a bottle. And of course, it woke up my biological father. And for some reason, I was sleeping in the bed with him. I don't know why. It was just something that he liked to do abusive-wise. He was very sick like that. So he physically kicked me in the stomach when I was dead asleep out of the bed and made me go fix him a bottle. Okay. And I scramble up and I go and I fix the bottle, and you have to realize I'm 8 at this time. Okay. I go and I fix the bottle, and of course Riley's crying because she's hungry, which is my little sister's crying because she's hungry. And I go and I trip over the carpeting. And the bottle spills. And he kicked me again and told me to go fix another one. And I'm sitting there and I go fix another one. And he said I wasn't doing fast enough. And he grabbed me by my throat, held me by my throat as he picked me up and held me against the refrigerator to where I was about 3 feet off the ground. That is a memory that plays through my mind continuously. It's reliving one of many traumatic events as if it was happening again. And there are moments in my life that I have to snap out of it, or have people who realize what's going on and they're seeing the signs and they help me snap out of it. Upsetting dreams or nightmares about the traumatic event. I have nightmares about seeing my biological event again, or seeing my rapist again. And since I have gone through some recovery and have been worked really, really hard to get my mental health back in check, I don't have these as much. Sometimes when I have very, very high anxiety, I go through it again, and then like my mind starts to leak in what I call the darkness. But I've gone through, as a witch, I've gone through a lot of shadow work to be able to work through it. So it doesn't happen that often. Severe emotional distress are physical reactions of something that reminds you of the traumatic event. This happened to me last night. I was doing something in the kitchen, and I moved really fast, and my husband thought I was slipping, so he grabbed my arm to help me, to steady me, which was a very kind, very sweet, and very loving thing that my husband did. But in my mind, I thought someone was grabbing me. I thought my biological dad was grabbing me, and I went into emotional distress where I just couldn't stop crying and things along those lines. And it's something you can't help. It's like your body is like on this hyper awareness subconsciously where something could strike at any time and your body automatically reacts to it. And then when your body realizes that you're safe, that's when the emotional distress goes in. I don't like people to sneak up behind me because of this. I don't like people to, I don't like going to places where I get like haunted houses. I couldn't go to haunted houses at all, period, because I kept going through this, but because they would like grab you and stuff. But now I've gotten a lot better and actually got to go and experience a couple of haunted houses, and I really, really loved it. There are some parts of movies, like in Game of Thrones, when Ramsay is like raping Sansa, I can't watch it at all. Point blank, period. Like, there are certain things that I can't expose myself to. And that is because of just the trauma that I lived through. And it's something that I have to work on, and it's something that's getting a lot better through the years. Thanks to having an incredible husband and an incredible support system with my little sister and some really great friends, I have gotten a lot better because I do have long-term PTSD. I have long-term PTSD, and it's about managing the symptoms as best as you possibly can. Now, another group of symptoms are called avoidance. So avoidance is trying to avoid thinking or talking about the traumatic event, just ignore it and eventually go away. I used to do this. It's very toxic for me when I did this. I developed dissociative amnesia where for preservation services, like reasons to preserve my mental health, or subconsciously, I would disassociate. I would completely forget, and and we'll go over that later. I know a lot of people do this. Like, you disassociate from that. Like, I know what happens, but I can't close my eyes and see it happening in my head. There are certain things where I can see it, and there are certain things that I can't, like the more extreme versions of the more extreme events that's happened. I can't see it happen in my mind, and it's just because a lot of things are going so bad. That's an automatic reaction for my body and my mind to do. It's just like, okay, we can't have you living through this over and over and over again, so we're going to force your brain to forget. And that's what I did. Avoiding places, activities, people that remind you of traumatic events. This is 100% true. There's a family reunion and my biological father is there, I will not go. And I've had family members sit there and say, oh, he's your father, and things along the line. Fuck that shit. My mental health is more important than seeing that evil, dastardly man. I hate going to the town that we lived in because he was highly praised and thought to be an amazing guy, when really he was just a drug-dealing, abusive asshat that the only reason why he got his kids back is because he didn't want to pay child support. I do not like to talk to certain family members because they remind me of him. And they have the same toxic personality traits. One of my favorite things about moving out of Alabama into Texas was because nothing reminds me of him. was that I have had a lot less anxiety, a lot less stress, a lot less everything since moving, and it's helped a lot. So I don't have to deal with that symptom a lot. I don't have to deal with those symptoms a lot more now that I've moved. Negative thinking and moods. Okay. Negative thoughts about yourself, other people, and the world. Yes. There are points where I've tried to hit myself multiple times, and that was a source of PTSD and trauma. I have a general distrust for people. When me and my husband started dating, I was not in a committed relationship, but I was seeing multiple people just for the pleasures that they could give me. That's the best way I want to describe it. And that I had a distrust for the world in general. Right after me and my husband met, my biological father tried to kill me. It happened about 9 months after me and my husband met. And at the time, I carried, now you can say it's paranoid, but I definitely understand. I carried pepper spray on me at all times. I carried 2 knives, and I would only wear boots because my knives would be hidden in my boots. I would carry like one of those canes that can pop out and you can beat someone with in my car. Multiple things that if I ever got into a situation, I can defend myself. And that was because I was so heavily abused. And it just became those things became my safety net. Because I didn't trust the world at all, point blank, period. Hopelessness about the future, yes. The saying, not here for a long time, here for a good time was my motto. At this point, and how to have this best at this as I can. I didn't do drugs, and I didn't overdrink or things along those lines. But if a bus hit me, I wouldn't care. And it is a type of suicide, but it is where you don't care whether you live or die. And that's where I was at. And it was hopelessness about the future because I thought I didn't have one. Like, eventually, I really thought that I was going to die young. And it took me really healing to be able to go through this and realize that I don't have that hopelessness anymore. That I got that, I call it my spark. I got my spark back. Memory problems. Just talked about this. Memory problems, including not remembering important aspects of the traumatic event. Yes. It's called dissociative amnesia, and I was diagnosed with it. And really, it is a blessing in disguise. Difficulty maintaining close relationships. Yes. My husband has been my longest relationship. I used to have this problem that I didn't keep friends a lot because I had this overwhelming sense that they either use or abuse me or something would happen. But I also have this feeling of like there are certain characteristics or overindulgence or things along those lines. Like, my biological father was a really big alcoholic. And people who drink a lot really freaking scare me and freak me out. Because, one, you don't know how they're going to react. And two, like, for me, whenever it started whenever he would drink, but Whenever he would drink is when a lot of his more violent tendencies showed up. So I have this thing where I just don't like to be around people who drink a lot, because you don't know how they're going to react. And that causes me to detach from people, from friends and family, because I don't like to deal with a lot of people who do alcohol, because my biological father was alcoholic. People who do drugs, nope, can't do it. I don't like to be in a place where people cannot have self-control, and I cannot control myself. And I have some family members and some friends that exhibit those kind of things, and I just cut them off completely. Lack interest in activities you once enjoyed. It took me a long time to get back to really enjoying the things that I love. The only thing that I really held on to was my craft when I went through all this and went through this healing. And I really started to pick up new hobbies that I really enjoyed. I used to really love sewing when I was younger, but I stopped doing it because when I was a kid, that's when the abuse got worse. So I wouldn't do that. I wouldn't play outside. I wouldn't do these things that normal kids would do. And there's a lot of things that when that happened, when he tried to kill me when I was 20, or 21. I was 21. I lost all interest in things that brought me joy. And I was really good at faking it and putting on a mask and pretending that I was okay. It was carefully sculpted, very beautiful mask that I put on to wear in front of people, but on the inside I would mostly just sleep. Yep. Anytime I just couldn't deal, I would fall asleep. You have a difficulty experiencing happiness, love, joy, contentment. And this is something that I worked through. This is one symptom that I've worked through thanks to therapy, thanks to medication, thanks to a bunch of different things. And really good support is when you're going through this, that you can't accept positive emotions because you're afraid the other shoe's going to drop, or you can't experience positive emotions because you're drowning in that complete darkness over and over again. Depression, anxiety problems, insomnia. These are things that are hard to fight through to be able to feel those happy emotions. And where a lot of people, they even go emotionally numb, where they're completely apathetic, where they don't feel anything. I felt this way right after my brother committed suicide. And I describe it this perfectly. That you could have stabbed me and I wouldn't have noticed because I was so numb. And thankfully, through some counseling that was in my school that I did for myself, I got a lot better, and over the course of about a year, I was able to put that back into check again. To where I could emotionally feel. And I just felt everything so intensely after that. I had to work through my strong emotions. It's hard being a teenager and also go through that at the same time. So, PTSD even changes you on a physical and emotional level, even down to your reactions. Like I said, I get really easily startled and frightened. My husband is I'll have my AirPods in and I'll be doing dishes or something, and he'll touch my shoulder and I'll jump and scream. Because for a split second, it brings me back to that. So now, when I'm doing that, my husband will come in front of me and I'll see him, and then he'll touch me. Touch my shoulder or my arm or give me a kiss or whatever. Always on guard for danger. I will say this. I do still carry a knife on me at all times, just in case something hits the fan. A lot of people who go through PTSD, they have self-destructive behavior. I was a cutter. I drove too fast and tempted fate into me having a wreck, and I had a couple where I shouldn't survived. I never did the drinking. I never did the drugs. I just lived recklessly. Like when it came to, like, I learned how to fire breathe. I learned how to swallow swords. I would, like, go to places where I know I shouldn't be at because they were, like, highly dangerous. Just for me to feel that adrenaline kick. Trouble sleeping, trouble concentrating. I have trouble concentrating anyway, so I can't say I actually will attribute to my PTSD, because I have ADHD, which is something that we will discuss. Irritability, angry outbursts, and aggressive behavior. Yes. There's some times where I get really high anxiety now, and I do have just it won't be like little things set me off, but I won't communicate it to eventually I will do really like big angry outbursts. I already have a temper problem, that another awful thing that I got from my biological father. But I do really, really well at keeping it in check. That's something I definitely had to learn when I was little. And if I keep letting things build up, then I'll snap, and it'll go either two ways. I'll either cry because I'm so angry and shit's about to go down, or I'm yelling. And you want me to yell because that's the lesser of the two. But that's gotten a lot better since I went through some rehabilitation. And then overwhelming guilt and shame. This is something I had definitely when I was younger. When I was, it took me forever to come to understand, and going through therapy and years of therapy, to understand that it was not my fault. I have nothing to be ashamed of. That my rapist, my biological father, my mother, they were all adults. I was a child, either 16 or younger. And that it was no fault of mine. And if you are a victim, it is not your fault. It is 100% their fault. And I'm going to walk you guys through a little bit of my story right quick about how I got better. So I have mitral prolapse, and it's where the blood goes backwards inside your heart and it leaks. And it makes your heart spaz out a little bit to where it has to like force itself to restart. So for me, how it forces myself to restart is that I pass out because my blood pressure doesn't move. It doesn't go up or down depending on what kind of exercise I do. That's one of the things why I like yoga and I like walking. It's because it's exercise. I have to do it for longer, but it's exercise. And it doesn't put a lot of pressure or strain on my heart. So, because my heart problem was working hand in hand with my trauma and my dissociative amnesia, I would actually have episodes where I would pass out because of my heart problem, because I was doing too much and not taking care of myself, and I would lose memory. And so I'd pass out and I'd be like, how'd I get here? One time I passed out and I thought I was 16 again. Scared the hell out of my husband. But that's when we started dating, and he is probably the most patient man in the world. So after and I'm going to start it here. So throughout school, my teachers and my counselors would realize that I was exhibiting behaviors of being abused, and instead of asking me straight up if I was getting abused, because it is Alabama and it's the South and it's known, everybody said very hush-hush, which is stupid, because this was back in the 90s, early 2000s. They decided to put you in counseling instead, okay, to help deal with your issues. So I was going through counseling all through school. From the time I was about in second grade on, I was in and out of the counselor's office. And then I went from there to where my doctor was like, hey, you have really high anxiety problems. Is that affecting your heart problem? We're going to put you on Prozac. I go, okay. So that helped take the edge off, but that didn't fix the problems that I was already having. And me and my husband started dating. I was very open about my trauma with him, because that's something that I really that I was working on myself, was that I'm not going to wear my mask. So I metaphorically destroyed my mask. And on our first date, I was very honest with who I was and what I did. And we've been dating for about a year or two. He's very well educated, took multiple psychology classes, and he recognized the signs, and he was like, maybe you should start counseling, and that would help. And I had an amazing psychologist. He didn't put me on medications or anything, but he used the science of psychology to help me break down those experiences and give me tools to where I can manage my PTSD and be aware of what I was doing and help be able to correct that. And after years of practice and years of working through desensitizing certain events, for example, one of the first ones that we did was from the refrigerator event that I told you guys about. And that was one of our first ones, because that was one of the only couple I can remember. And I'm not sensitive to it. That event doesn't trigger me anymore when I think about it or something. It's more like, it kind of, for me, feels like it happened to me in the past life. Like it's something that happened to me many, many moons ago, and that it happened to me in another world, another time. And it breaks my heart that a child had to do that and her father did it to her. That's what upsets me the most. It's not that I still feel the pain or something from there, because a lot of it is I don't anymore. I'm so desensitized to it that it doesn't hurt. But I have incredible sensitivity for that child should have been protected. Was that sacred calling of being a parent and loving the baby that you brought into this world should have been the most important thing. But instead you decided to physically harm your child. And that's something for me that it takes, that's where it takes me now. It doesn't take me to a place of just, we'll have to live through that scene again. It just takes me through that. But for me, it was a lot of counseling. For me, it was through a lot of support. My husband was the biggest champion when it came for me getting my mental health back in order and working through everything. And him encouraging me to let go of people that were toxic in my life and that were not serving me. For example, one of the biggest ones is is that I have a very toxic relationship with my mother. She is an alcoholic. When she drinks, she likes to lay hands on people. And my husband, I kept giving her chance after chance, and my husband was like, look, you can't keep doing this to yourself. You're a very kind and loving person, and you need to realize that it's only hurting you. It's not helping you. And it's making you relive some of those symptoms they've worked so hard to get. So that's one of the reasons why I've just kind of let that relationship go. But thankfully, I know exactly. I have a really great support system. I really started something that actually really, really genuinely helped me was something that you wouldn't think of. So the term emotional support animal is very, very true. For all of you who have watched any of my videos or things along those lines, you realize I have a Siberian Husky who's solid white, and he's a floof. And his name is Xerxes, and he is really my emotional support animal. He knows when I'm getting upset or overwhelmed, and he comes and he lays on me, and he suffocates me with his love, and it truly does help. So, and also it helps you work through your feeling emotions, experiencing positive emotions. It helps you with your emotional numbness. You start enjoying the activities and developing attachments again. So Xerxes really did help. It's finding something to care for and really using something to empathize with, and that's one of the reasons why we got Xerxes. And I really did give my husband much of a choice because I kind of just brought him home. But that's one of the reasons why he let me keep him. But that pretty much wraps up this episode today when it comes to the first episode or this series of mental illness. Just to give you guys a heads up, I will be I will be trying to stick to a schedule like more regularly now. We just got mostly unpacking the house. I think we have like one room left to really organize and like give some love on. So we're going to be going through that. You'll be actually, I'll be introducing my husband when it comes to us talking about our work experiences and going through a couple of nerdy things. Also breaking down the basics for D&D and Magic the Gathering, some of the history and stories on that. But thank you guys so much for being so understanding and kind. From me to you, blessed be and lots of love. I hope you enjoyed the new moon and the full moon that's happening on Halloween, our Samhain. So we'll drop an episode on Samhain and how to celebrate it the witchy way. So thank you guys so much, and merry meet, merry part, and merry meet again, loves.